I think the Adidas thing was a great kind of pivotal moment because I know like it went kind of crazy viral on LinkedIn also, and I think that's where LinkedIn and Twitter, and I think that's where a lot of like the industry folk saw it, and they were like, hey, no, we're not ready a year from now. We're actually ready today.
AI is being used for scripting, for shooting and producing movies.
AI is being used for everything.
Hollywood production is being transformed by artificial intelligence.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Curious Refuge Podcast. I'm Caleb and I am super excited about this week's episode. This week, we have Dave Clark on the podcast. Now, you may be familiar with Dave's work online. Dave is a UTA-repped writer and director in the feature filmmaking space and is commercially repped at Secret Level for his advertising work. We've actually chatted with Secret Level a few times. They're awesome people. He has recently amassed millions of views for his AI directing work, and he was featured several times in Forbes, NBC, and No Film School. Congrats. Over his career, Dave has created commercials, immersive engagements, and brand spots for several companies, including Snapchat, Hewlett-Packard, Pepsi, Lobos Tequila, Intel, and more. No big deal. Outside of filmmaking, Dave is a successful creative director working alongside Diddy and other notable figures in the entertainment industry. He has also creatively partnered with actors and activists like Michael Ealy, George Clooney, and the late Michael K. Williams, and the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights to help fight for justice and inclusion through narrative storytelling. Dave, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. You already know I'm a huge fan of everything you guys do, and every time we talk, it's always a fun time. So thank you.
Well, it's funny because we met Dave for the first time at the Sony lot and hit it off, but there was a lot of people there who weren't able to have like a very long conversation. But it's funny because you may actually know Dave because I knew him as Afraid to Sleep online. And so, you know, he's like, my name's Dave. I was like, who? And he's like, Afraid to Sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I feel like the AI world is like that. It's like, you know, you meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm Tony. And then like they share their like Discord profile handle, you know, that's like just something weird and random. You're like, oh my God, it's so great to meet you. So yeah, it was cool meeting you there.
No, it's funny and totally true because, you know, like I'll tell some of my buddies and colleagues and it's like, yeah, you know, I met Caleb and Shelby over at Curious Refuge. I was like, what? You met them? Like, you know, because like today AI world, they're like, you know, these guys are the rock stars. They're the face of AI right now when it comes to just like, you know, because everyone, like, I think there's another podcast that you did. I think Shelby said something about, you know, we're always watching Tim theoretically during our lunch breaks. And there's like people, I could say the same thing for watching Curious Refuge videos. When that video drops, it's like you drop what you're doing, pull out your iPhone or on your laptop or your iPad and you watch it, you know, you kind of veg out. But same thing. So a lot of buddies of mine who are, again, big filmmakers, directors, and in the advertising industry, they all love Curious Refuge content. So there you go.
That's so kind.
Well, the same is true about your content. Every time I see it, I'm like, all right, like, let me go. I want to be the first to watch this viral thing before it gets picked up in the New York Times or whatever other big publication.
That's awesome.
That's so funny. I would be curious, Dave, you've had such an amazing career so far and it's only just going. I feel like you're just, if we're looking at a graph of your success and where you're headed, it's like you are just this right now. And what got you started in filmmaking and yeah, can you tell us a little bit of the story that brought you to this point right now?
Absolutely. And I love telling the story because it's kind of messed up, but it kind of like shows how I am as a father today. But my dad was like, he would collect every VHS you could ever imagine. So, and I grew up, so my dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up kind of, you know, military kid all over the place. So at the time we were living in Frankfurt, Germany. And so he would obviously get stationed or travel to like Korea or where my mother is from or like Japan and all these other places. So he'd always bring back these like really messed up like Japanese or Korean films, some of them horror, some of them just like fantasy, some of them animation, like, you know, manga style stuff. And, you know, I was like 5 years old and I was like watching this stuff and he would like say, hey dude, check out this cartoon I just got, you might dig it. And it was like Ghost in the Shell or Akira. And I was like, I probably shouldn't have been watching this at 5, but I thank him for it because it like opened me up to like this idea of like international creation and film. And it's not just like, you know, because I also grew up in the States also. And, you know, I have a lot of friends that watch some of the same movies that I watched growing up, but they didn't watch a lot of the international stuff. Like they didn't get introduced to manga until like college or like high school. And like I was already introduced to some of the most like groundbreaking films, in the 80s, at age 5, age 6. So I always thanked him. And then he also introduced me to Wes Craven, which is one of my favorite filmmakers in the horror space. Obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street, John Carpenter, and then James Cameron. When it comes to the Terminator films, was probably my biggest like leap into, because I saw that movie when I was like 5 or 6. I don't even know how young I was, but when I saw that, I was like, holy hell, like that's what I want to do. I don't know what it is I want to do, but something like, I want to either be like the robot or I want to be the guy like talking to the robot. I didn't know about filmmaking at the time, but when I was little, that's how I looked at it. I was like, I want to be like making that robot do cool things. And that's kind of how I like, from there, it just like went on, and I went into like an art high school and like started painting and getting into fine arts. And then from there, I got into Pratt Institute out in Brooklyn, which was one of the top art schools when I went there. And I studied fine arts, I studied filmmaking, and then that kind of got me into the advertising world. I think like at that time when I graduated, like Facebook just came out, which is funny because my sister actually went to Harvard Law. So I was actually on the campus when Mark Zuckerberg was like there during that whole like social network thing. If you watch the movie, so it was very interesting to be in Cambridge and be on the Harvard campus during that time, because it actually reminds me of a lot of what we're seeing right now with AI. It's like it was a very small niche tech community. You had the people from MIT, you had the people from Harvard, and they were just kind of like talking on their own little versions of Discord and chat back then, and about this new tech, about like creating something where we can get like people together and talk online, and it really does remind me a lot of how AI is working. It just with like it started very small knit, and even though yes, it's millions of people probably using Midjourney now, it still feels very small. Like you say, you can see some of the top notch, most groundbreaking work, and then you say, oh, I know that guy. So it's kind of cool, right? So yeah, just fast forward, did my advertising career in New York, then got heavily into screenwriting, started optioning scripts across to LA and meeting producers and stuff, and then met my wife, who was from San Diego, and it was like, she's not moving to New York. She's like, I'm not leaving the 72 and sunny. So I was like, I should make my way over there. I'm a filmmaker. I should be on the West Coast. So that's how I ended up here. And yeah, since then I've been writing films. I shot an indie feature. I shot a bunch of shorts, directed a lot of commercials. Like I said, I just got into the DGA as a commercial director, film director. And then on top of all this, yes, I love being part of what people are calling me the pioneering group of AI filmmakers and creators. That's cool. I'll take that. People want to say that because I just think it's just a great tech that a lot of artists and a lot of not even just artists, like people in general are going to be able to use and tell their stories in ways they never could imagine before.
That's awesome, man. And I would go one step further. I would say like at this point, you are probably one of the most, if not the like biggest AI pioneer when it comes to creating concepts and showing people what is possible with the tools. And so,
oh, dude, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
It's really cool to see your work.
It's so interesting that you have that foundation of like art. Like you started, I don't know, it's very obvious in your work that there's more going on here, like than you just like showing up and using the tools. Like there is a deeper understanding of how to, I don't know, put a project together in a very artistic way. And so that's very interesting and it's good to hear. And I love your projects and they're all very beautiful and inspiring and you're doing the best work right now.
So I would love to backtrack then because you were successful before messing with artificial intelligence. I think for most artists to have scripts optioned, to be repped, to direct an indie feature, like these are like bucket list, like would love this to happen in my career. And yet this was already your reality. And so I would love to hear more from you about why do you think you were so successful before all of this AI stuff started happening, and how did those lessons you learned or the things that you overcame to become successful in that part of your career, how did that help you with this transition to AI?
I think it comes down to just like technique and tactic and storytelling. I think because I came from because my sister's a writer. She majored in literature at Duke. She's obviously a lawyer, graduated from Harvard. I think I was around a lot of people who were writers. My father was a writer. He was a great storyteller. So I think I try to marry that with my love of visual mediums, art, painting, graphic design, and then something like filmmaking. And I think that's what I brought into, or what brought me into AI, because just anything I can get my hands on that can help me tell whatever story I want to tell is something I'm going to gravitate towards. And I think something like AI is it's revolutionary in the stories that we can tell and the visuals we can create. I mean, you guys craft some of the most hilarious things I think I've ever seen on the internet. And, you didn't do it in like months, you did it in a certain amount of time, and it still got just as much buzz and comments and likes and shares and anything. So I think it's a great point to prove that if you have something to share, have something to say, you can get it out there with the right tools. And I think I kind of rambled a little bit. I don't know if I answered your question completely.
No, that's helpful. And I'm so curious too, because you were saying that, your dad was a writer, sister, is involved in writing as well. Was creativity something that was encouraged in your household growing up? Because, when I think of a military family, I'm not exactly typically thinking of, that military dad being a writer at the same time.
For sure.
And so I'm curious about that dynamic and what that was like for you.
So interesting. So this ink drawing right here is actually done by my grandfather, whose name was Dave Clark, and my dad's name is Dave Clark also, which is, it's crazy when it comes to when you're getting mail, if you're still living at home at the time. But so my grandfather was a great artist. And that's kind of where I got a lot of my DNA is from him. And then he was also a school teacher, which is interesting. And so was my grandmother, also a school teacher. Both taught history and arts. And then he was like, probably one of the best, I think, painters I've ever seen. I have a lot of his work. My dad has a lot of his work. It was shown in museums in like the South and stuff back in the day. Some of it still might be in museums. But I think seeing him create really compelling stories, and I think I put something on Twitter the other day that was like, a story my father told me about, his time in the 60s during segregation, like taking a chance and trying to date someone who wasn't the same race as him, was a big gamble. And, today you can kind of marry anyone you want. But I was like, that kind of story, like that's something you could visually tell in a really compelling way. And I just think about all these people who have these amazing stories that can now tell them. I think people get lost in this idea of like, and I don't want to get too deep into politics because I'm currently in the middle of some threads or on threads, not arguing, but having debates about AI and art. But I don't want to go there on this. I just want to say that I think everyone should be happy and excited about the capabilities of storytelling and creating whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to call it art, you can call it content creation, whatever. It's giving everyone a chance to tell these amazing stories that otherwise they once couldn't, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, we talk a lot about the democratizing power of AI, and it's really interesting because I think up until the AI revolution, the word democratizing, most people would really have a very positive outlook. Like, yes, like let's make things available to all people. This is the first time that I've seen making things available to all people push back so hard by a creative industry. It's very interesting. But I think it's also cool to see, like you talking about your dad and the experiences that he had, and, he was writing to tell those experiences and to share that with others. It seems like, for him to tell that experience through film at that time would have been really challenging because of obviously the logistics and politics that go into filmmaking. But now with AI, he could tell a story hypothetically about his experience using filmmaking and narrative storytelling, which is really interesting. So it feels like it's unlocking a larger storytelling medium for people who normally would have maybe only been able to, let's say, write a book or, a more kind of individualized expression experience before.
It sounds, Dave, like you have been pretty optimistic towards AI in these tools, which is amazing. And I think that is also you being a pioneer, you have to be, right? But was there a point that you were nervous towards these tools, maybe in the beginning, as someone who has experience as a filmmaker and has trained, professionally, like how it might impact you? I would love to hear your experience there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I'd be lying to say if I wasn't terrified in the very beginning. I think anything new and something that feels like it could threaten what you do is terrifying, and that's why I sympathize with a lot of these artists, because I try to tell them, like, look, I'm an artist. I went to one of the best art schools in the world. Like, I get it. I was starving. I was living on couches when I first graduated. Like, I get the struggle, and I get the fear, and I get the pushback. Like, I think no one who uses AI to create anything is like against artists, or like saying that we're better than you, or we're trying to take something away from you. If anything, I'm trying to say, let it help you. Let me try to show you how it can actually help your career and help you stay ahead of everyone else. I think that's one of my biggest arguments, is like, no one's trying to take anything away from you. I'm trying to show you things are going to change, and you have to change also. You have to go with the change. You can't stop process. None of us created AI. None of us are machines. We're not robots. But we are going with the change because that is our career. We're innovators. We're storytellers. We want to tell the best stories in a way that reaches everybody. And anyway, I say, tell your stories by any means necessary. That's a tweet I put out because I believe it. I don't care how you tell your story. If you want to use charcoal, if you want to use pencils, if you want to use AI, then you do it, right? You don't let anyone tell you how to get out your story. I think that's the most important thing, and every artist should know that. That's what we're taught in art school. By any means necessary, get your art out there, right? That's number one principle. I remember drawing people for 8 hours a day, nude people. Like, that's what you did, right? For like years, you just straight up drew naked people for 8 hours every single day. I remember the first day I sat down and, someone a man got undressed in front of me, and it was awkward, right? And I attribute that to how I felt about AI. It was awkward. I didn't understand it. But then as you sat there and you drew for hours and then hours of the day, you start appreciating the beauty of the human form, whether it's male or female. You start appreciating it as art, right? You start learning the intricate lines and the curves, and you start getting better with it. I think that AI to me is in the same vein. Like, when I first saw AI, and I attribute a lot to my buddy Chris White. He's he's a producer. He did a lot of like horror films, and he did like VHS Part 2. Like, if you remember those the anthology series with the handheld stuff, that was pretty innovative when it came out. And he's doing a new film with James Wan and A24 based off the Backrooms stuff that went viral on YouTube. So he's doing some great things. But I attribute a lot of my AI success to him, because he was one of the first. And this might have been, over a year and a half ago, him on like the Mid Journeys and doing the V1s, and and when I first saw it, of course I was like, I don't know, that don't look very good. And then he was like, Dave, wait till the video stuff comes out. Just wait. And then the video stuff came out, and I was like, it's cool. Okay, it's all right. And then I think when it was like the next iteration of like Pika, like the next, when he like did some kind of update, I was like, okay, holy hell. Like, I literally can put in anything I want into Midjourney or DALL-E and bring it into this thing, and I can animate it. I can make this guy's hair move. I can make the water ripple. Like, that was, and it's so funny because it's like, this is coming from somebody who's shot on 35, who shot on 16 millimeter film and captured beautiful imagery, like amazing imagery. And I'm not here to say that the AI stuff is going to look better than what you can capture on a 35 millimeter camera. I don't think anyone's trying to prove that as a point. What I'm saying is, you look at something like The Dismal Swamp, and that is a script that I wrote hand over painfully for years. One of my best screenplays I've ever written. I can never visualize it. Like, I tried to rip imagery from, movies, like everyone does. Every film director, if they want to admit it or not, they do what they call a sizzle reel. They do, they do kind of like a rough cut of what the film, or a teaser, what the film can feel like. And they're using other artists' work, right? They're using other people's clips. They're using images. When you're in advertising and you're trying to pitch an idea to a client, what are you using? You're ripping off other people's commercials. You're ripping off images that you found on magazines. And, so it's always an interesting thing to me when you think about, well, AI just rips off people's works, and no one knows how it really works, right? You can talk about diffusion, and you can kind of get down to the technical semantics of it all. But at the end of the day, I look at it no differently than someone trying to sell an idea with another way of taking work or stock imagery or images from magazines to sell an idea. And like I say, by any means necessary to get your story told. So I take something like The Dismal Swamp, something I wrote years ago that I could not visualize no matter how hard I tried. And then eureka, with the power of Midjourney and Runway, it took me all that of 2 or 3 hours. That's something I pained over for 4 years to visualize, and that went viral. Like that got onto Forbes. Like that just goes to show you, it's like it's not the people, it's the stories that are being held back and aren't able to be told. So there's Christopher Nolan's out there. There's amazing writers out there that have these brilliant ideas that now people can see, but before people couldn't see. So that to me is amazing. That's the most amazing thing about AI is the opportunity.
There are so many rabbit holes I want to go down from stuff that you just said. We'll try to pick this apart one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to what you talked about related to artists having the ability to visualize their films for the first time, and really, like you said, you had a feature-length script that was written. You didn't know how to put visuals to it. And I'd love to think about that in the context of SAG. And the reason why I bring that up is because I know that you have kind of some personal experience with chatting to SAG about using AI in storytelling. And so I'm really curious, kind of if we kind of shrink down to the micro level, to like one-on-one individual people, what does AI mean for the average writer? And then what was your experience like chatting with that organization? If you want to share a little context, I would love to hear more about that story and what that was like for you.
Yeah, I think for like the actor, or some writers are also WGA and SAG. I think for them it's you have opportunity to pitch your ideas, right? Because everyone has ideas, everyone has stories they want to tell. A lot of actors are writers, a lot of writers are directors. Obviously, I'm a writer director. Not all of them have access to an ARRI Alexa. Not all of them are the greatest technicians when it comes to camera. And while yes, I always support live crew, go film something, pick up a camera, whatever you can. When you can't, dream it up a different way, right? And that's kind of like my advice to them. Or else, what? Nothing, right? Or else do nothing. I don't want to do nothing. I want to do something at the end of the day. So I think you got to look at it that way. You could just sit back and say, oh, no, I'll just do nothing about this brilliant idea that I think I have. Or you do something about it and you try to craft a narrative using AI because you never could before. Now you can. So why wouldn't you, right? And for the my buddies who are big time directors in Hollywood, they now, and I know they use these tools, like admit it or not, they love it, and they're using it to pitch their amazing ideas that they have and scripts that they wrote. Everyone's using Midjourney for that when it comes to deck creation and image creation. And AI is cool when it's just that, right? But it's like when it's no different using that versus motion AI and animating AI. So I look at it kind of like in a holistic view. Like if you use it, you can use that's the greatest thing. You can use AI to tell your story at different levels of the game. You can use it for the pitch process when you're storyboarding or putting a mood board together. But then you can also use it from a visual motion standpoint. I can actually put together a trailer that can sell you the film. I think within a year, it's going to be mandated by studios, and this is from conversations I've already had, that you're going to have to show them a visual trailer of your film using AI. That's going to be a mandate. No one's going to write you a $5 million check anymore for just your little PowerPoint with a couple images on it. Like that's done. So you have to use it. You're going to have to use it because everyone else who does use it is going to be using it in the same way, and you're going to want to keep pace. As far as SAG, I think that was a very positive conversation. I made a lot of great friends on the board of directors, for sure. Frances Fisher, who's on the board, amazing actress. If you remember, she played Kate Winslet's mom in Titanic. So she's amazing actress and amazing woman, and she is all about SAG and protecting actors' likeness. And she, at probably one point is, and maybe even still a little today, still a little anti-AI when it comes to, digital replications or digital doubles. And again, I understand it. And what I told SAG when I spoke to like, I think on the day it was like 800, and then, I think 10,000 people ended up watching the webinar. And I knew we did something good when Fran Drescher, who's the president of SAG after, she shared it. And she was like, watch this if you want to know what's really going on with AI in film. And that's how I knew we did something good, because I did it with my buddy, Rob Niederhurst, who's a VFX supervisor. We collaborate on a lot of stuff. He also is an AI enthusiast. He loves using AI. He's trying to find innovative ways to use AI in the VFX pipeline. He did movies like John Wick 3, Conjuring, Devil Made Me Do It, and like he just did Spy Kids with Robert Rodriguez. Like he was the guy who worked, He was Robert Rodriguez's right-hand man because that's a lot of visual effects. So he knows what he's talking about. So he invited me to talk to SAG, and my basic message to them is at the end of the day, I am still a filmmaker first. Yes, I still love live actors. Like, who wouldn't want to work with Leonardo DiCaprio? My dream would be to work with Denzel Washington. I think any AI filmmaker would still love to work with real actors. When it comes to how we're using it now, a lot of the times we're just using it to get ideas out there. We're not saying, hey, this is going to replace an actor. I'm sure it's not using it that way. I'm using it as, hey, Denzel, check out this trailer for Dismal Swamp. Let's make this movie. Like, so I think there's a difference in approach in how we're using AI. And sure, there are AI artists out there who want to just use generative AI. And again, all power to them. Like, I think that's also still a great way to create content. And if you want to make a movie with it, I'm ready to see that movie. Let's see what it looks like. But to me, I still want to work with actors. And I think my conversation to them was the way I use AI, especially in the earlier, like the now, is going to be a lot more of the visual effects kind of world of how to use really cool, like groundbreaking AI tools to like Stable Diffusion or diffusion models to create groundbreaking worlds and things you've never seen before. Or like do what would be like a $60 to $80 million movie for like $5 to $10 million. Like, that to me is what every filmmaker should be hoping we can figure out, because there's going to be no more gatekeepers that tell you can't make a certain movie at a budget level anymore, because you're going to be able to do that at a lower price point, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. And I read a report that said in 2024, they're already projecting for the film industry to make $1 billion less than they made in 2023, which was already a pretty challenging year. And so I think a lot of these budgetary problems have to be figured out in order for the art form to continue in a healthy and sustainable way. And it feels like in many ways AI might be helpful in that process, which I think is really cool.
That's a great point. And also, you reminded me of one of the things I also said was, because I think somebody asked me, he was like, what would it have taken if you would have did the Dismal Swamp with like a real crew and like paid people this and hired real actors? And I was like, first of all, I would have never done that for something like Dismal Swamp trailer, because it would have just been another sizzle reel that I would have cut together and use, again, other clips from other movies. I rather have, generated my own imagery based on my script. I actually fed a lot of my script into the prompts when I did a lot of those images, which I thought was really cool. And then cut that together and then use that to sell my story, because I thought that to me feels more authentic. Like, if you ask me, like, if I wanted to pitch my idea, I'd rather pitch it that way using AI than using other artists' movie clips. Like, you tell me what feels more authentic when you're selling your vision. That to me, I think feels great. And then the way we went around that was, I said, so think about something like a Dismal Swamp. Like, what if this turns into a real movie? Then all of a sudden, that's a 100-person crew potentially. That's 100 actors with work, crew members with work that came off of an idea that I was able to sell because of the power of AI. Otherwise, I would have never been able to sell that movie. And I think there's going to be hundreds of movies like that are now going to be able to be sold because they were able to visualize it to the degree that they needed to. And then that's going to become a real job for a union crew, for a union actor. And that's the benefit of it.
Have you seen any interest in the AI films you've released? Like, anyone wanting to turn those into feature films?
Oh, yes, for sure. I think another one that went viral on Christmas Day, out of all days. I still find that so funny that something like a horror short could go viral on Christmas. Like, what were people doing, watching like Friday the 13th while they're opening their presents? No. So another was a great proof of concept, because it showed, I think for the first time, I think what people are saying is like the first time I ever seen live action mixed with like an AI generated like runway or any kind of diffusion visual, like kind of like seamlessly edited together. I think that was like that got shared everywhere. That was on every AI front page on Christmas. I think it was so funny. It's like, this is the best gift ever on Christmas. A lot of people, a lot of the blogs were sharing it like, this is 100% AI. I was like, no, I had to put out another statement. No, it's live action with AI to try to clarify. Yes. But, once it gets out there, there's nothing you can do. So all I can do is tell the truth on my own page. but that got a lot of excitement from some studios and producers and my new manager that I now have.
Your new manager.
Which is pretty cool.
Wow.
My new manager, yeah.
That's amazing.
Who was doing a movie with Denzel Washington. So that's pretty cool.
The stars are
There you go. There you go. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
It's coming together for you, Dave.
6 degrees of Denzel. Putting it out there.
I'm so curious with having projects go viral. Is that a new experience for you, or have you experienced virality previously?
I have, but it was with like, advertising work. It wasn't with like a personal thing that I did by myself in my bedroom on my MacBook Pro, which that's another funny story. Until recently, because I just, I just did my first DJ commercial. So I got that M2 Ultra. But before that, I was on a busted up MacBook Pro and creating all that stuff. And people was like, you made all that on your MacBook Pro? Another benefit of AI. We're using GPUs that are in the cloud. We're not using our own GPUs. We're using, now that I have this, obviously I'm going crazy with Topaz and stabilizing it and stuff we'll talk about later. But yeah, it's interesting that from a MacBook Pro, and not even a decked out one, you can really just go nuts and create stuff that looks like it took so much horsepower to create. Really took nothing but just a web browser, which I still think is phenomenal.
That was Caleb's with the Star Wars, the first Wes Anderson Star Wars project.
Yeah.
The whole objective,
which I love.
I'm going to be on the patio creating this on my laptop just to test look at the tools, that's going to be in the AI coffee book that's going to come out next year. That the Star Wars Wes Anderson, like that. I feel like that's, to me, and again, like I look at everything, and I'm sure you guys do too. Like that to me was a pivotal moment. I think I honestly think because that came out like April or May. When did that come out?
Late April, early May. Yeah.
I think that was honestly the thing I saw that said, "Holy shit." Okay. Cheers. Let me jump in on this thing. I honestly think that was the moment, because I think my first like video that I generated was probably around June, like my first kind of test. So it had to have been, because I was using Midjourney obviously for like a year or so, but never like the video stuff was so new. What did you guys do? Did you guys do that on, because you just use, did you use DID or like, what did you use for that? I was actually curious.
Yeah, that one we use Midjourney obviously for the images, and then DID for the face animations and things like that, which we use every now and then, but it's not our go-to now that we have image to video.
And that was it. You just use DID and Midjourney.
And some After Effects. There was some hand animation too, but it's
from an AI standpoint, that's mind blowing, because that's gonna be, that to me is one of the most, that's going to be one of the historical pieces. I think, like I said, an AI filmmaking coffee book. That's definitely going to be on one of the pages.
We should make that. Let's make that, Shelby.
You should.
That coffee book.
You guys should. That's actually pretty cool.
Make an AI coffee book. That'd be fun.
There you go.
It's going to be pop-out pages. That's so Curious Refuge. You should just like have a pop-out book.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, let's do this. Because Runway, they have their AI magazine, and it looks beautiful. It's like highly curated, but like a Curious Refuge pop-up AI journey, that feels very us.
I love it.
It's interesting because we were kind of like playing with these tools, I mean, a year and a half ago maybe, and I remember we were on vacation with some friends and we were turning our Chihuahua into like a Renaissance painting, and we were like, haha, look what you can do. But it was like, that's the extent of really what we were using the tools for. And then it was the Harry Potter Balenciaga video. Did you see this one?
Oh yeah.
Then it was just like, oh wait, like this was made in AI and it's a video and it's capturing our attention. Like there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. Yeah, it was like a little stretch that happened, but I think that was like the stretch that I was like following along, and I was like, wait a minute, this stuff is blowing up. Like people are loving this stuff. And to go back to your question about viral, yeah. So this is like the last 3-4 months. It really started on Reddit. I think because I actually I was also doing like I think the one that blew up on Reddit was my friends. I did friends according to AI, and that got like a couple million views on Reddit, and then that started becoming a thing. And I was like, oh, so I'll just do this according to AI thing. And I did like The Office. I think I did Saved by the Bell. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole. I think just having fun. And then when I started like looking at like all the stuff I was generating in Midjourney, when it came to like my personal project, I was like, why don't I just animate some of these things? I was like, why not? And then that's where I was like, I want something that I like for my own IP to like go viral. And that was like my goal. Like I want to get people to see this and see if that can work and using AI tools. And it did. And I think from there I was like, okay, cool. Now I see like this stuff can work. It's not a waste of time. let me really start paying attention and getting up to stuff with the tools and really going, really diving in, I think, to AI 2 feet in.
And I'm really curious because I think for so many people listening to this podcast right now, having that success, because me and you were chatting personally the other day, and you're like, my inbox is super full. So many people want to hire me. Like, it would be impossible, right, for you to be able to do all the work that's now coming your way. Same thing with us. And so I think a lot of people are like, okay, they see the success that you've had with sharing your work online and getting it picked up, and what can other people do to see that level of success? Because I think people want to go viral on Reddit or YouTube. They want to be written about in news publications. Like, how much strategy was there versus just creating something really good and just sharing it? I'm really curious.
It's interesting because when I look at, like, let's take the Adidas spot, for example. Like, when I look at something like that, and I wrote, like, my headline was, created Adidas spec commercial on my coffee break. I wasn't thinking like, oh, that's what's going to make it go viral. People are like, how the hell did you make this in a coffee break? My coffee break was like an hour and a half. It wasn't like 15 minutes, but people were like, coffee break? You did this in 10 minutes? Yeah. It's like, but it's like, I would say it's almost like you got to be a marketer, right? You got to think about how to catch someone's attention in the right space. And I'm not going to lie and say I did that on purpose, because I didn't. That was like a oops, that works. Wow. Okay, cool. Let me see how I can make, and then I ended up making fun of myself. The next one was like, made this over several coffee breaks. And people kind of poke fun at it, because a lot of people were like, you didn't do this on your coffee break. I'm like, well, my coffee break was a little longer than normal probably to you, but it actually, I did it within a couple hours. But that was, it was interesting how, like, just the way you like set up something, it wasn't even the work itself, but how do you, obviously you have to have a powerful visual to catch your eye. But what's going to cause someone to want to click and to go further on the piece? So I think you got to get clever with your wordplay, because right now, I mean, this was months ago. It's even more crowded now. You really got to try to figure out how to stand out.
Made this while watering my plants. We just get
exactly. Yeah. My dog walked across my keyboard, and now I have the short film. I hope you like it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There you go. The trolls will love that one.
Well, I love that you were talking about that Adidas spot. And if you haven't seen the Adidas spot and you're listening to this podcast, pause the podcast, go watch it. It really is incredible. I think that's the perfect transition to talking about AI for commercial production, because I think that as we think about 2024 and then how, things are going to progress, I really feel like there's kind of different thresholds that we're going to reach, right? There's the online content threshold in terms of quality, which I think we're past. And I think like AI is totally capable of creating online shareable social media and YouTube content that's really interesting. And then there's commercial production, and then there's silver screen. And I think that these are like different bars and barriers that we're trying to get to. So for AI advertising, it feels like 2024 is going to be a huge breakout year for that space. And I know that there already has been a lot of AI work in the advertising space even last year. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of how you see AI advertising progressing and kind of what we can expect in the coming months and, I don't know, next couple of years?
No, yeah, for sure. I think the Adidas thing was a great kind of pivotal moment, because I know like it went kind of crazy viral on LinkedIn also. And I think that's where LinkedIn and Twitter, and I think that's where a lot of like the industry folk saw it, and they were like, wait a minute, like this was done with AI. Like it wasn't even about like done on a coffee break. I was like, this is AI. Like we can start creating this level already. Like I think people were just kind of blown away that you can take something from Midjourney, animate it, and actually create a compelling piece, with obviously the help of Kendrick Lamar and Radiohead. Like it was a dope track that was already going viral. But you got to think about those, right? All those pieces. And when you're creating spec, you can do anything you want. It's a spec. That's why you say spec in front of it. And that's the beauty of AI, is we can create kind of anything. But you want to make sure that it still, tells some kind of a visual or cohesive story. It doesn't have to be Huckleberry Finn or some like narrative story, but it needs to tell something. And then that was my prompting and ideas for that was like, Adidas campaign in the year 2045 or 2065 in a cyberpunk city. It was kind of like, because I was also separately working on a film that I actually did an AI film for Ninja Punk. It was one of my first AI films that I did that I released on YouTube and Reddit as well. And I was in the cyberpunk world, and I was like, what would an advertisement look like in my Ninja Punk movie? And that's kind of where the Adidas ad came from, because I was putting together like a pitch deck using AI imagery, and I was thinking about that scene in Blade Runner when you see like the holograms and you see like the really cool cityscape, and I was like, I want to make an ad for that world, and that's kind of where that came from. But I think it just, there was a great, I think, pivotal moment for sure in the advertising world that said, hey, no, we're not ready a year from now. We're actually ready today, especially for online content. Obviously broadcast, and you're talking about silver screen, that's whole different levels of fidelity that, we're not 100% there yet, but I think there's still Band-Aids to get us there currently. I think I was telling you earlier, I just shot one of my first commercials as a DJ director for a client that we actually use AI in a broadcast spot. So I think that goes to show you that we're already using it at a broadcast quality level to some degree. So that's exciting for me, and it's exciting, I think, for anyone who's either in advertising or in AI. And a lot of my colleagues, obviously, because I was in the industry for so long, they're coming to me and saying, what do I got to do? How do I get ahead of the curve? Like, how do I do what you're doing, basically? And I'm like, well, to do what I'm doing, you just do it. It was like anyone can go on Midjourney. Like, you're an art director, you're a creative director. Just pull up, man. Pull up and bring out your ideas. And like the same way you would go on Pinterest and try to find and cobble together a bunch of okay images, you can create spectacular images on anything you want to create, any kind of idea you want to pitch with like a Midjourney or a Dolly. And that's kind of my advice to them. It's like, there is no secret, man. Like, I tell you the tools I use, that's all I literally do. Like, of course you have to have some merit and some creative idea and, somewhere to draw from. You can't just go on and type, orange cat and get some spectacular, actually you probably could get a spectacular orange cat image just by typing that in, but you still got to focus it again to the story you're trying to tell or the idea you're trying to sell. But it is that simple. It's use these tools, but you got to use these tools right. And I think that's what you guys do best. And the Curious Refuge team is tell people how to use these tools right, because you can use them wrong.
Well, I think that's a good transition then to kind of a big announcement that we have at Curious Refuge. And depending on when you're listening to this podcast, you may have already seen this, but we have been having conversations with Dave, especially because clearly he's just so gifted as a commercial director and storyteller. And we were curious if Dave would be interested in actually teaching AI advertising at Curious Refuge. And he thankfully said yes. So thank you so much for that, Dave.
Yeah.
And so we have some big plans. We are releasing the beta version of our AI advertising course with Dave very soon. And so we wanted to spend some time talking about that. Because like you just said, Dave, like it's not all about just typing in random prompts and getting them, especially when you get into advertising where it's so important to really art direct and fine tune not only your commercial work, but also graphic design and, pitch decks and everything else. You want to have a lot of control and the ability to inject your creative vision into the project and not just randomly have AI give you, something. So I was wondering if you could talk about a little bit of like what your vision is for the course and kind of, what are you hoping to teach the students?
No, absolutely. I think you brought up a great point. AI, when you're thinking about filmmaking, you're kind of just dreaming up your ideas, your story that you want to tell. When it comes to advertising, a lot of times you have a brief from a client. A lot of times you have kind of parameters you need to play in, or you might be doing or wanting to create an ad for your own brand or your own startup or something like that. And when you do that, you still want to keep some kind of parameters around what you want to tell. You want to create some kind of a mini brief, because at the end of the day, if you're not cohesive in your storytelling, even in AI, it's going to fall apart and it's not going to be successful. So I think one of my biggest keys is to make sure you know who your audience is, right? Make sure you know the style you want to kind of go for, the art direction, and make sure you know what story you're trying to tell this audience, right? So AI allows us to tell these stories in so many different ways, and we have so many amazing tools that we're going to definitely dive into. But those are like the first things you really got to understand, because, like I said, I come from the school of advertising. the toughest clients in the world that hate everything you do, like, or change the brief mid project that happens, or, the quote unquote vicious client feedback that we all know and we've been through. So that's what I'm going to try to help is like, how do you kind of navigate around those hurdles? And I think for the first time ever in history, we have a chance to show the right type of options that those client feedback notes and those hurdles aren't going to be so big anymore, because you're able to tailor the creative and the vision in so many different ways, but then also like the right way, and then the most interesting way. And I think, a lot of times when we used to pitch ideas, you kind of always went into the room with your favorite idea and then your second idea that you were kind of like, I'm just throwing this in there for an option. That option can still be spectacular with AI, I think. So that not only makes you look, like a better salesman, a better advertiser, but also a better creative and storyteller. And so those are kind of some of the tricks I want to bring to the table and kind of let people in on some of my secrets of how we, how I go about it from a strategic standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. And then, get into how we, brass tacks, how we get down to the editing, get down to the sound design, the motion design. I think one of my favorite things of creating these AI videos is when I'm doing sound design or laying down a track or, the editing, the flow, the edit, the cadence. There's all very important storytelling and filmmaking tips you can bring into your content creation, your advertisements. So yeah, that's some of the things that we're going to talk about.
I love that. And it really reminds me with our AI filmmaking course, I think a lot of people join because they want the tech. Like they're just like, tell me the tool, show me how to use it. Let me get the thing. But what they realize and where I really feel like the big value is actually like talking about core concepts. So like you were saying, like, visual storytelling 101, how to deal with clients. What do you do when a revision rolls around? Like these are all things that people don't think about needing, but are actually incredibly important for the process of practically doing a paid project that can help you make a career.
Yeah. And I'm personally excited to learn art direction from you. I think that is such a amazing skill that's needed on every project and you crush it. So I'm curious, where will people start versus where will they be once completing your course?
Well, I guess I'll start however they come in, right? So some people will have, some people might have already taken your course, so they're coming in a little bit more seasoned, and you'll definitely have some industry vets who come from the advertising world who's never used AI before. They're gonna, take something from it slightly differently, but I think we're all gonna kind of stir the train the same way. We're gonna start kind of in that 101 of just AI and advertising in general, which is just about what does it come down to? It comes down to the product, it comes down to the story you're trying to tell, and it comes down to the visual art direction that you're trying to sell or try to come up with. So I think the most important ingredients comes down to not just the tools we're going to use, but how to use those tools in this industry, right? Because the way you use these tools for filmmaking is different than how you want to use them in advertising, right? It's going to be, again, you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with, world recognized brands, right? When you think about like doing like big brands like a Nike or Adidas or a McDonald's or whatever you might want to do. And a lot of these big brands are already looking at AI creators and looking at the AI industry and trying to see, can these things, perform at the level that we think they can. I know for a fact, Adidas liked my a post that went viral when I did their spec spot. So they saw it, a couple people on LinkedIn connected with me that work at Global Adidas. So it got to the right people. I think I want to basically take you through almost like it's almost like we're going to truncate my advertising career from when I started out as an art director all the way to me being a creative director and filmmaker. I think that's kind of like the flow of the way the course is going to go. Like when you're an art director, you're really trying to focus on the visuals. You're really trying to focus on that. When you're more of a creative director, you're focusing on the more strategy, the story that you're trying to tell, right? And then also from a marketing standpoint, because you're kind of wearing several hats when you get to a creative director level. You're kind of working alongside like the account directors and the CMO and the CEOs of these big major advertising companies. And then also from a filmmaker standpoint, how to take that idea into the post-production process, how to edit properly, how to know your audience. Because, some advertisements work better as 5 to 10 to 15 second spots. Some work good as 30-second spots. And we're going to talk about the differences and why those durations work for different type of advertisements. And then everything from, I said, motion design, motion graphics, visual effects, sound design, all important pieces of the creative process. Like I said, if you see my Tesla example that I did, sound design was very important there. When you're talking about a car hovering over water, what does that sound like? What does a Tesla sound like hovering over water? Which I think I heard they aren't waterproof yet, but hopefully they will be soon. And then like the Nike spot that I did, like the way the water swirls around the people in the video. And I think that's going to be like, I think that's what's going to be intriguing to people, is like those little nuanced moments inside a 30-second spot that people talk about. Like I know the Nike one specifically, everyone talks about when I dip down the audio of Billie Eilish and we go underwater with the music, and like there's little small things that will help make it stand out, because again, it's going to be a competitive industry and people are going to want to learn these tools. But what better place to learn it than Curious Refuge, where they have historically taught some of the people that are already in this industry. I think that's what's exciting, is we're coming to the place where people go to learn these type of tools.
Yeah, and honestly, we're really just humbled and grateful that you're willing to share your expertise on our platform, and I think that whether people are trying to come in and learn filmmaking, which all of us have a lot to say about that, or commercial advertising, like hopefully any creative with any dream of where they want to be will be served through this education content, which is really exciting. Before we get into rapid fire questions, I wanted to pick your brain, Dave.
Yeah.
Are there any really either nerdy, or I'm going to use the word hacky, but I don't know if that's the best word, but are there any like secrets that you've learned in your day-to-day workflows? Because I know you were mentioning Topaz earlier for like up-resing and things like that. Like, are there any things that you've learned, let's say in the last couple of months, that have been particularly helpful for extracting more quality or just better, visual storytelling from your AI projects?
Well, I will say, because I actually know Javi over at Magnifique AI now, and he gave me access to the 16 times upscaler. And holy crap, man, night and day. Like images that I generated like months ago that look like a muddled mess, I brought in there and up-resed times like 8 or times 16, and the quality that you can extract from that is incredible. And I think one of my secrets that I've been using, and people are wondering like, how is your stuff so detailed, like the specks of dirt or like water droplets? Like I lose that whenever I bring that to runway. Is like, you got to start as high res as you can, especially for those, not every image, the images that you have a lot of intricate detail in, like dirt. Like I think like there's that shot from Lost Transmissions that I think you called out, Caleb, with the dirt kind of falling on the dude. It's like stuff like that. Like if you start at a high enough res with the image, you can keep some of those details. And I think that's important, especially for advertising. Like I was thinking, like if someone wanted to do like a Coke commercial and like the Coke is like flying through the air, like you want to up-res that, right? You want to, before you bring that into like a Pico or runway, you want to make sure that's the highest, crispest quality it could be. So something like a Magnifique has been my secret weapon when it comes to those super detailed VFX type shots, slow motion. Like and then I bring that into like a Topaz, and then I up-res it again to like 4K, 120 frames per second. And like, I know people always say, this AI stuff's always slow-mo. Well, I want to go more slow-mo. I go 124 frames and really stretch that thing out because I love it. I love all of it.
So basically you're saying that you take the base image, throw it through a Magnifique, and then you use like an image to video tool like Pika or Runway, or are you actually creating an image sequence from Pika or Runway and then running it through Magnifique?
So I've done both. So I've done a few things, right? So I've actually taken like an 8-second clip, chopped them down to PNGs, brought those each frame into Magnifique, and then reanimated that on a timeline. Takes longer, but like I think for like your money shot in your spot, like we're talking about advertising, it's worth it. It's gonna look like it was created with some next level CGI tool, and everyone's gonna be like, "How the hell did you do that?" Every time I've done it, like some of the water stuff in the Nike spot, it's like, how? My stuff doesn't look like that in Runway. I was like, well, you got to go one step further. And I think that's what's going to be exciting about the course is we're going to go one step further. We're going to kind of like take it to that next level when you want it to be super polished and quote unquote broadcast ready. That's kind of like the level you got to play at, that 4K level. Like, what does this look like when we start getting into that kind of quality?
That's awesome. That is such a good tip. And I'm going to like immediately leave this conversation and start testing that out. And
I'm curious too, Dave, this is like a question that I just have for me, but as an operations person, you have a lot going on. How do you stay organized? Is there a tool you use to like organize your projects? yeah,
Oh my God.
together.
I'm so embarrassed of this question because, I'm not the most organized person. Like, my notes on my laptop and phone connect. So everything I do goes on those. It's a new note. It's a new note. Luckily for my commercial work, because I'm repped at Secret Level, and Jason Zeta, he's also a feature filmmaker and big time director. If you remember Elf Yourself, he created Elf Yourself. So that was his claim to fame. Then he went on to become this I think you met him, Caleb, at the Range Media thing, AI thing. Yeah. So yeah, because he told me he met you guys. So luckily we have this executive producer, Monica, who like controls my calendar when it comes to like the actual paid work. So I'm on par when it comes to that. But yeah, like you said, I got an amazing wife that helps with the kids and the dog. And then I'm able to just really, like, if I'm not writing or doing some of my filmmaking stuff, like I'm really full on into the AI stuff. Either, like I said, testing, doing new tests, or coming up with new tools. I'm working on a film right now. I'm hesitant to know if I'm going to enter it into the Runway Festival. I actually got to talk to the CEO of Runway, super cool guy, Chris. He was super supportive of everything I was doing, and the fact that we're talking on DM, and he said, "Here, let me put a calendar invite on your calendar." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Where's your assistant, man? You're the CEO. This is incredible." So we had a great 30-minute conversation, but I think that's the level like some of my work has reached. It got to like the CEOs of some of the companies that we love and use every day. They want to talk and see what's going on. Like I said, Javi over at Magnifique, he DM'd me personally, and I was like, "I love what you're doing. Like, let's talk." Like, so I get to be in a lot of his betas and the VIP of Magnifique, if you will. But the opportunities are great.
I want to be in the beta of Magnifique. Are we?
You should be.
Yeah, we need to reach out.
Just DM Javi. He knows. Okay. He knows who you are.
I'm trying to find. There's this event. There's another festival you should submit to, but they're due like March 3rd or something. It's in Barcelona, but they're doing a big premiere with AI artists specifically.
I want to go to Barcelona.
I know. Yeah, you should. But I'll send you a link to that, and I'll post it in the like description as well, because it's like specifically AI filmmakers like submitting their films, and they're gonna do like a big festival premiere. So but they're accepting films up through like mid-March, something like that.
Very cool. Like Caleb says, it gives you a reason to finish something. That's the only reason. I'm not trying to win all these things. I just like to have a deadline. Like, force me to finish it.
Well, for not...
You did win. You won the Pico one, at least.
I did win the Pico one, yeah. I did win the Pico
and for not having your notes, just having your notes, you're doing an amazing job. So keep it up.
It works.
It works.
It's just because it's anything I read on my phone, I know it's on my desktop. Yeah. So I never have to think about another app. It's pretty cool.
Before we get into the rapid fire questions, sorry for pushing this off, but a lot of the projects, like, there are some of the projects that we worked on that takes like 1 to 2 weeks to put together, and it's a lot of work, and you put it out there, and like no one really cares. Like, you love it, but like no one really cares, right? But then there will be these other projects that like literally coffee break, like you just kind of throw together, put it online, and then it's just popping. And sometimes like you just don't really know why. Like, it's just like, like it's cool, I guess, but like, is it that much cooler than this other project that took weeks to put together? I don't think so, but the internet seems to think so. And so I think like, if anyone listening to this is looking for like a takeaway here, like just put together the project. Like the only success metric should be like, am I putting together a project that I'm happy with, and just like do that at a regular basis. Cause like, I know like me and Dave have been texting quite a bit, and almost every time I'm texting him, he's like, "Yeah, I stayed up late working on a project." And I feel like that is like so cool, because I think it shows that like there's some passion behind what you're doing, and you're doing it for fun. And I think like if you're doing something for fun that other people are doing because they have to, because the industry's changing and they have no option, like you're going to win every time. And so I just think like, have fun, like make these projects and like just get them out there, and like don't overthink it.
It's for sure. It's what they tell you in filmmaking school, right? It's like tell your story. Don't worry about what's in style, or like try to be Tarantino. Like I remember when I was in art school, like the new Tarantino movie just came out, I think Kill Bill just came out, and it was like everyone wanted to make their movie like Kill Bill or like Guy Ritchie, like Snatch had just came out. Every student film looked like Snatch. It was like the one thing I took away was like, just make what you want. Like, people might not like it right away, but maybe 10 years from now it'll become a masterpiece. And I think that's the right idea to have. Just make shit, right? Just make stuff, put it out, like make a bunch of stuff. Don't be so precious, right? With your art and with your work. Like, put it out there. It's gonna find an audience if it especially comes from a good place and a creative space. There's gonna be someone out there who wants to tell those similar stories, who's gonna really jive with it. And that's one of the things I had to tell myself, especially when I got deep into AI. Like, I was hesitant at first, and then I went on a tear. It's like, I don't care. And that's why I made Afraid to Sleep. I made a separate account for my Instagram because I was like so precious with what I'm going to put on my personal IG. All my friends who are in the filmmaking space are going to hate me. And like, I was so worried about what they thought. And I was like, let me just make another account so I just don't care. And then that's where Afraid to Sleep kind of came from. And Afraid to Sleep, again, comes from, it's a Wes Craven reference. Never Sleep Again was like the documentary of like the making of Nightmare Before Elm Street. So the idea of being afraid to sleep because, of that movie, obviously, Freddy Krueger, but afraid to sleep because AI moves so fast and you don't want to miss the next tool and the next update. So there was literally a 3-month period where I literally didn't sleep. And that's probably what you're talking about, Caleb. I was like, I got to see what's next. I got to finish this project. Yeah, I got to, it became obsessive.
And I think this will kind of funnel into rapid fire, but I think like you were saying in college when these students were making films that were like Kill Bill or like you're inspired by Wes Craven, like it's good to start there though. I think when you find inspiration, you're going to start to find your voice by being inspired by these different directors. And so would you say, one of my first questions is, who is your favorite film director? Is it Wes Craven? I feel like you've brought him up a few times.
It depends, right? Because I have like a subset of favorite directors. If it comes to horror, yeah, it's like the Wes Cravens, for sure, the John Carpenters, because I love the classic directors. When it comes to like, obviously the sci-fi, more dramatic space, I like the Kubricks, right? I love James Cameron, and I love Guy Ritchie. I guess I'd pretty much name the directors that I do love. But yeah, and then obviously Jordan Peele from a more contemporary standpoint. Love his films. But yeah, those are probably some of the tops. And obviously, because I'm an art school nerd, I love Tarkovsky. I love Lars von Trier. If we get into some of like the really like artsy fartsy directors that I love, yeah, I have a list of those guys too that I studied.
I'd love that though. I've recently learned that I'm pretty sure Paul King is my favorite director. He did Wonka. I'm obsessed with Paddington 2, Wonka.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I think I have a style that I like, and it's no stakes, so it is not Wes Craven.
I know it's not Wes Craven, Shelby. I remember when you were judging my
the fuzzy sweater and the soft yellow.
Yes, exactly.
No, but I was telling Caleb about this AI film I want to make about a caterpillar, and it so gives Paul King, and I'm like, okay, I think I need to work on that. But
I love it. And I will say, and to go back to what you said earlier, yes, I definitely made a film like Guy Ritchie. I'm not going to say that I didn't. Absolutely. Every filmmaker does that, right? Or I think, actually, no, I did one like Guy Ritchie, but I think I was more obsessed with Darren Aronofsky because Pi had just came out. And everyone was trying to make like a black and white, like I did a black and white film where I was like in a library, like studying a bunch of books and like trying to like decode time travel. But it literally was a Pi ripoff. So yeah, there's no knock to doing that. I think that's how you learn. You kind of deconstruct. And I do that with when I'm writing scripts too. I'll get a PDF of a script of like I did recently. I just did it with that movie Drive with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
page for page, I literally read the script, paused it, read it, watched it, and I was just deconstructing how he visually told that story. Incredible exercise. So absolutely, that's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
You learn from the best. So yeah, but I think when it comes down to when you're trying to tell your own film or your own story, then yeah, you just can't care about what people think about your story, even if it's about a rubber duck on an epic adventure. That actually sounds like a cool. Actually, that sounds like a cool movie. That sounds like a cool Curious Refuge movie right there.
Yeah, let's make that.
We might have to make that now.
Caleb and I love the animation of do you know Sarah and Duck? You have kids, so maybe you
Yeah, of course.
like Sarah and Duck. It's so
Sarah
calming.
Duck, yeah.
Every time we would be around kids, we'd put on Sarah and Duck and they would all chill out. You're like, this is incredible. It's so
it's like a
low stim.
It's like melatonin, natural melatonin.
It's great.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned about shooting in a library. I'm like, does every filmmaker shoot, like, have a film where they're in a library? Because Caleb has a horror film in college.
Yeah.
Now I gotta see this, Caleb. Come
Or
on.
library.
Yeah.
And I remember after shooting that film, like, I could not go and chill in that library because I was always so freaked out.
That sounds awesome.
We'll have to link
We'll share a link in the notes of this podcast, but I'm not putting it public.
I have films I won't put public too, so I get it.
Okay, question. This is like into the rapid fire.
Okay.
Do you have New Year's resolutions? And is there one you can share with us for 2024?
It's sad, but I didn't make any resolution.
You're like, I'm just going. Honestly, I feel that.
I didn't even notice New Year's. It was, I mean, obviously I noticed it because I bought like the blow up pop things for my kids and like the little firecracker thingies. But
that's interesting. I feel like this is the first New Year that even we have not really set resolutions. And I'm seeing that as being kind of a trend in a way, because it's like, I think everyone's just like busy. It's like, oh yeah, it's the new year. It's like already a week into it. It's like, we're just rolling with what was going on last year,
honestly, because like we all know in AI time, like a month is a year. So it feels like New Year's was just another day. And like we've already, it's been 2024 for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, being in LA, do you choose Disneyland or Universal if you have a free Saturday?
Gotta say Disneyland. We've had season passes for years now. My kids just went there yesterday.
I love that.
So
okay,
Great.
we had season passes, and they have this like limited release for passes now. So they go on sale tomorrow, and we have all of our alarms set. So we are trying. So wish us luck for tomorrow at 9 a.m. that we get Disney pass.
you gotta get it. And ever since they incorporated Star Wars and Marvel, it's like it's Disneyland all the way. Like Spider-Man freaking flies around there now. It's like that's pretty cool.
Okay, someone gives you a StubHub gift card. What are you buying tickets to go see?
I already saw Depeche Mode. My wife took me there a couple weeks ago. So let me see who else. Third Eye Blind.
Third Eye Blind. Depeche Mode. I have to look up.
A lot of my work features Depeche Mode songs.
Okay.
I'm just obsessed.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, from the 80s.
Can't get enough. Yeah. Okay. I see
Just
it.
can't get enough.
Love that. How fun. Cool. Who's your favorite music artist currently?
Music artist currently. This is gonna sound really odd, but it's this young white dude rapper named Little Mabu. I don't know if you know.
Okay.
He I like it. Is weird. It's not even that his music is like my liking, but it's cool that he like stayed in college. Like he still goes to college, and he like blew up huge. And like he got, people are trying to get him to sign record deals, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna stay in college because my dad never got to go. And it's like, that's amazing. Like you're like really showing my kids that you can be a dope rapper with millions and millions of views and making a lot of money and still go to college. I'll take that. I'll take that from an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What it like
I think
good head on that kid's shoulders. Love that.
I don't think Young Gravy did the same thing. I think he blew up in college and then dropped out. But
Caleb loves Young Gravy. The amount of energy Gravy gives him. Okay, so that's all. But where can people find more of your work?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram at either at the Blasian at THEBLAS. I spelled that right?
We'll link it. Don't worry.
Or link
we'll link
at the Blasian, and then at Afraid to Sleep
Okay.
on Instagram, and then at Twitter. I mean, not at Twitter. On Twitter or X, I'm just at DIESOL, which is actually not Diesel. It's actually die shit out of luck, but people keep saying Diesel. like I misspelled it with an O.
That's so funny.
But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. Again, if anybody is interested in learning more about Dave's upcoming AI advertising course, you can check it out by visiting the course page over at Curious Refuge. That will be going on sale for the beta very soon. And of course, we'll link to all of Dave's accounts below this video. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Curious Refuge podcast. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, Dave. See ya.
Thank you.